Hello and welcome to this presentation on the progression options open to our level 3 learners as they enter into their second year of their course and hopefully start to think about what might be next. Hopefully what we're going to do is give you some information about the process of applying to university, some of the things you might want to look for if you are interested in an apprenticeship, and also how to get further support if you need it. All of this information is delivered to students through their progress sessions, so this is just for you to be able to recap at home or for parents to be able to access that information. So as I've said, we're going to provide an overview of the UCAS process, particularly the updates for 2026 around personal statements. We'll briefly cover student finance, although lots more information about that is available on the internet. We'll provide an overview of higher and degree apprenticeships, so those apprenticeships that follow on from level 3, but we'll also touch on level 3 apprenticeships that might be suitable. We will look at the support available as we prepare those applications, and then look at hints and tips for students and parents on how to plan for those next steps. So UCAS is the name for the University and Colleges Admissions Service, which you can find at the website there on the screen, ucas.com. They process all of the applications for full-time courses at universities in the UK. If you are looking to apply to university outside of the UK, UCAS don't deal with that, and you will need to seek some specialist advice from us, which we will be happy to provide. But for most of our students, it's going to be a UCAS application. Now, as well as dealing with the applications, UCAS website is actually full of useful information about apprenticeships, about careers, about jobs that you might want to do in the future, as well as all the detail about the courses, or at least a good start point. You can also find out about open days at universities and all kinds of other things on that UCAS website, so well worth having a little explore of. So once you've had a look around on the UCAS website, perhaps searched your course and had a little look at what universities are offering subjects in that area, and then you will go on to create a UCAS hub. Your UCAS hub is your application, and it goes to all of the courses that you're applying for. You can apply to up to 5 courses at different or the same universities, but it all goes through this one application form. The student will fill in most of the form because it covers things like their personal details, the courses they want to choose, their educational background. For this section, you're going to need their exam certificates because you have to list their exam boards and the results, as well as any employment history that they have, and then writing that personal statement. The progress tutor will then have a look over everything that they've written in, check that there's no glaring errors and nothing's been missed out, have a look over their personal statement, and that process might do a little bit of back and forth, and then they will provide a reference and predicted grades. Then all of those applications go through a checking process where they'll be checked both by the progress tutor and then by a member of the senior team as well. So when it comes to choices, a section of the UCAS form, they're going to have 5 choices. That can be multiple courses at the same university, it can be the same kind of course at 5 different universities, but it is important that they only apply to places they actually want to go, and it is important to bear in mind that you need to have researched those options. You're going to only get one personal statement, so your courses need to sort of align enough with each other that you can write one thing about why you're interested in this subject and it would be applicable to whatever you've put down. Don't worry about what order the choices go down on the form. They all go equally to the universities. They don't know which one you put down first, which one you put down last. I would always recommend looking on the UCAS website at the course, but then clicking through to the university for more detail if it's one that you're going to put down on your form, so that you know what the modules are, what's involved in the course. Just a bit more detail really available on the university's own website. When they've made those 5 choices, as I say, that's all on one form, and that costs £28.95 to send, and that fee is waived if you are on free school meals. It's also really important that you check your entry requirements. So each course will have an allocated either set of grades, and that's normally if it's showing as an NA on UCAS and then you click through, it's because there are specific subjects that you need a specific grade in. Or you need to be able to go on that course, or it will have a number of UCAS points, and there is a really handy UCAS tariff calculator that will help you to work out how your grades translate into UCAS points, and there's also one later on in this presentation. So entry requirements wise, as I've said, sometimes there will be subject specific entry requirements and sometimes specific GCSEs or grades that you have at GCSE. So it is really important that you explore that section of the page profile so that you know that when you're putting this down as one of your 5 choices, it is something that you're going to be able to get into. Some courses also require admissions tests, and it's your responsibility to find out about those, to book and apply for them, and to go along and do them. They're not generally something you sit at college. Some of them are, some of them aren't. This tends to be for subjects like medicine or law, but there's all kinds of things that can involve. Sometimes with an arts subject, you might be required to submit a portfolio. Again, that's for you to pull together and send over to the university. And some courses might invite you to an interview. That's very common for things like health courses, for them to want to speak to you, meet you, see if you're suitable for that kind of role in the future. And then your offers will be made on the basis of any other information, portfolios, interviews, etc., and your predicted grades. So it's important, if you're unsure what your predicted grade is, that you go and speak to your teacher and find out that information so that you can make informed decisions, and so that if there is any conversations that need to be had around that they can be had in a good time. So this is the table of UCAS tariff points. So you can see there at the top end, when we're getting distinctions, we're on about 168 points, right down to a pass, which might be at 72 or even 48 points. Generally speaking, 96 points would be the lowest you would expect to see for a standard entry course, but with 72 points it is possible to go on and do a foundation year to build up into that degree course. So don't rule yourself out if you don't feel like you're going to have enough points. It might just be that you need to do a little bit extra along the way, and that will all be available to you when you're looking at the courses. So next up on the form will be the education section. Again, you need to be able to give the full title of the qualification that you've done, the grade you were awarded, or if you haven't yet completed it, if it's the course you're studying with us, for example, then you'll list the grade as pending, and the exam board that you sat it with. So it's really useful to have your certificates available for this section, and if you are unsure, to either contact your progress tutor if it's your college course, or to get back in touch with school if it is a course that you sat with them, because those details need to be correct. Coming on to your personal statement, this is your opportunity to sort of break out from the form and give them a bit more of who you are, why you're interested in studying what you're applying for, what you've been doing that sort of prepared you for this, and you write this one personal statement that goes to all of the courses. So this is where we say it's not really super possible to apply for engineering and psychology at the same time, because it will not be possible for you to write a personal statement that really sells why you're interested in both of those subjects. So you will need to choose something. It might be that you do want to apply for engineering and a different type of engineering, or something else sort of technical, or psychology and sociology, and that would be possible. But it's worth just bearing in mind that it will be difficult to write things that are very, very different from each other into one personal statement. Personal statements have been reformed for this year, so they are now going to be broken up into 3 questions. This isn't a huge change, it's more of a structure change than a content change, but you'll be asked to fill in 3 different sections of the form. So why do you want to study this course or subject? How have your qualifications and studies prepared you? And what else have you done that has prepared you or inspired you to want to study this sort of course? Each box needs a minimum of 350 characters. That's letters, spaces, punctuation, and the whole document has to be under 4,000 characters, with spaces included in that count as well. So it's not a very long piece of work, but it does need to be quite focused. It does need to be quite targeted to make sure that you're getting across all that you want to say in such a short space. And try to be enthusiastic, try to express and communicate something about why is this the thing that you want to do. And this is the part that we will do a lot of checking on and send backwards and forwards to you, so that we make sure this goes really, really well. So the bit that lots of students panic about is the sending the application. So once everything is filled in and you've ticked each section and marked it as complete, then you get to a point where you can pay and send. And this means that your application is sent to the college. So it comes to us first for us to check it over, for us to add the predicted grade and the reference. And so there is at this point the opportunity to get it back. So if you click pay and send and then have a massive panic that there was something you needed to add, you can get in touch with the progress tutor and we can return that form to you. We can't do anything with it whilst it's returned to you, so it's worth bearing in mind that if it's back with you, you need to make sure it's resent to us, because we can't send it to UCAS without that stage. But there is a sort of fail-safe there in that pay and send. Progress tutors then will check it all over, and students need to be meeting the internal deadlines for this. So our internal deadlines are actually a little bit earlier than the external deadline, which is the final deadline with UCAS, which is in January. That's because obviously we've got the Christmas holidays and things, and there's no way for us to check over that period when everyone's off. So we want to have them in and checked and mostly all sorted before Christmas. The nice thing about getting your form off nice and early as well is that you start to get offers back. So potentially if you get your form sent off in November or December, by Christmas you're going into the Christmas break with maybe an offer or 2 already in the bag. So it is a really worthwhile process. But even without getting those offers, it just helps us to make sure that everything is sent off at a really high quality in plenty of time. Similarly to the personal statement, the reference is broken down into 3 boxes that we complete. So there's a general statement about the college. That's the same for everybody. It's a standard thing that we click a box and it goes into. And then there's any extenuating circumstances, so anything that's happened along the way that might have interrupted your education journey. And if you know that there's something that you would like us to include in that box, please make sure that we're aware of it. And we obviously also draw on the information we have about the students. And then finally there's that academic reference, any other information that we have, including how they've got on their course, that we send off to the universities to help them make their decision about which students to offer a place to. So the deadlines for this year, we would love to see a first draft of those personal statements right at the beginning of October there on the 6th. As we're going into October half term, we'd like to be seeing a sort of final draft coming in so that any last tweaks can be made, and then the internal deadline is the 10th of November. That then allows us a few weeks before the Christmas holidays to do all those checks back and forth, and you can imagine that the time that takes with a large number of students. And then the external UCAS deadline is the 14th of January this year, so we want to make sure that everything is sent off by then to make sure that you are considered alongside your peers. So that is the equal consideration deadline. Everybody whose form is sent in by then will be treated equally in the decision making process. Beyond that point, it is still possible to apply, but not recommended, because you're only then able to access places that are left over from the equal consideration. So the deadlines for this year, we would love to see a first draft of those personal statements right at the beginning of October there on the 6th. As we're going into October half term, we'd like to be seeing a sort of final draft coming in so that any last tweaks can be made, and then the internal deadline is the 10th of November. That then allows us a few weeks before the Christmas holidays to do all those checks back and forth, and you can imagine that the time that takes with a large number of students. And then the external UCAS deadline is the 14th of January this year, so we want to make sure that everything is sent off by then to make sure that you are considered alongside your peers. So that is the equal consideration deadline. Everybody whose form is sent in by then will be treated equally in the decision making process. Beyond that point, it is still possible to apply, but not recommended, because you're only then able to access places that are left over from the equal consideration. The bit that everybody is uncertain about and wants to know more about then, the student finance. So student finance is divided into two parts: the tuition fee loan, which is for everybody gets the same amount, and it pays the full tuition fee for the student. Then there's the maintenance loan, and that's the part that's means tested and is there to support the student to live on. How much they get depends on where they choose to live, so whether they live at home or whether they live in student accommodation, where they're studying. So if you study in the southeast and in London, obviously cost of living is higher, so there is a little bit of extra student finance for that. And then on your household income, and they will ask you to provide some information about that, which will support them to decide how much the student needs in extra support. Student loan is only repayable once the student is earning over £25,000. So to be clear, this is the student's responsibility. So the means testing is to do with what else they might get in support from home, but they will be responsible for repaying this amount at the end. So once they're earning over £25,000, they will pay 9% per year of their earnings above £25,000. To kind of give you a bit of an illustration, this works out on £25,000 at sort of £30 to £40 a month. So entirely doable once they are earning that level. If your earnings drop below that, then you will stop paying, and the whole amount that's left over after a certain point is written off. So lots of students never repay the full amount. It is in that sense a little bit of a graduate tax, because it does mean that they're just paying it straight out of their wages at the point that they are earning at that level. When the loan repayment period is done, then the rest will be written off. So it's quite a good deal, really. It works quite well, and you can find out a lot more information about that on the website for Student Finance England. So applications for student finance will open around about March 2026 for a September 26 start, and you use an online portal to check your eligibility, make an account, apply, update your details, and then in preparation for starting in September, get paid. The more on track you are again with deadlines, the better with this. So universities will sometimes wait for the student finance payment to come in, but late applications do sometimes mean that the money's not there in time to pay deposits on accommodation and things like that. So if you possibly can, be on top of it. We will be reminding students through the year that it's time to get going on this, and make sure that application is in and the money is available when you need it. So what about those who don't want to go to university? Well, the reason that this presentation is quite focused on university is to say that it is a really good backup plan for lots of our students. But for lots of them, they do want to look at apprenticeships. Apprenticeships range in level from 2 to 7. So level 2, the equivalent of GCSE, right up to level 7, which would be a master's degree. And they combine work and study. So for most learners on an apprenticeship, you would be spending the equivalent of 20% or 1 day a week in a study context, whether that's online learning or in person, and the rest of the time learning on the job. You won't need to pay tuition fees, which is what makes it so attractive to students, and you'll be being paid and growing your work experience as you learn. So there's lots and lots to be said for it. It is a great option, but it's also very competitive, which is why we often advise students to have a university application in as a backup. And for our level 3 students, it's worthwhile looking at level 3 apprenticeships, because often you're going into something new, and so starting again at that level makes it quite manageable. But also level 4, 5 and 6, so level 6 being the equivalent of a degree, bearing in mind that those are competitive, that's a big investment from the company, and that they tend to be based in bigger cities, so there might be the need to move away. So it is one to do some research about, but to be realistic about how much independence is needed to take on those opportunities, and about how competitive they are, and so whether you've got a good backup plan in place for if you don't get that opportunity. Generally speaking, degree apprenticeships programs launch around about October and run until sort of February. So we, again, in progress lessons in our Teams channels, we will highlight that this is happening, that these are now open to apply for, and we'll be happy to provide students with support on the application. Unlike the UCAS application, it's not just one application for everything you want to apply for, but each individual employer will have their own recruitment processes with application forms, assessments, interviews, etc. So they do need to be quite proactive to have a good chance of getting one of these apprenticeships. They need to be getting stuck into lots of applications, keeping track of their emails and preparing for the world of work. So we tend to advise, if they are going to do a UCAS application as a backup plan, that they get it done early, so that they are then free to be doing the apprenticeship applications when they are open. The priority then over the summer is to start to decide what route is the best one for you, and you might want to do that by attending some university open days, by engaging with some of those online resources that we've been making available, the UCAS website, the apprenticeships websites, looking at league tables to decide on the university that's most of interest to you, getting any work experience. So there are courses and professions where having some relevant work experience is really important. So anybody wanting to apply to anything health-based would need to have some work experience. But also, if you're wanting to get an apprenticeship, very useful to have some work under your belt. Volunteering opportunities over the summer, again, just gives you that work experience. That's something to talk about, how you've been developing your skills outside of college, and then looking out for trips and opportunities as we come back in September to help you work out your next options. So that research over the summer really helps you to prepare to make these applications when we come back in the autumn. There's loads and loads of support on offer. So when students do come back in September, there will be lots of tailored progress sessions looking at their next steps. We have universities in on a weekly basis from September to December to talk to students about the process, to remind them about how to write a personal statement, to proofread and check statements with them, and generally to support them in making these choices. There will be events around the apprenticeship route and how to get into that, as well as loads and loads of information on Teams. So if you are not already checking your Teams regularly, that is the place to be, particularly if you're looking for an apprenticeship, so that you know about when they're launched, what's on offer, where to get it. And then there is the support from the careers team and from the progress team to help you with filling in applications if needed, updating CVs, deciding on courses, that all is available within the college, and then a load of resources as well that we have available in our careers areas in the college. As we enter the second year, the best way to prepare for these next steps is to maintain really good attendance and engagement with what's happening in college, to make sure that you're on top of work and that you're getting good grades in the work that you're doing. That allows us to predict really good grades, which obviously plays a part in the decision making at the university, but it also just means you are getting the best preparation for the university life, for that more independent style of learning. So consistency is key, getting here consistently, working consistently, keeping on top of work, so that that second year runs smoothly and there's space to be making these applications alongside. If you are wanting to visit any universities over the summer, then by scanning this QR code, you'll be taken to the UCAS website on the page where you can look up when each university is going to be holding open days. And they do happen over the summer and also into the autumn term. My advice would always be, if you're thinking about moving somewhere, that you take the time to go and have a look at it, to meet the teaching staff, to have a look around the university. But if that's not possible, there will also be opportunities in September to visit university, to have a look around, and to also explore the options here within college. If you have any questions at all, then please do keep in touch with us about that. So here you can find our contact details. So my name's Bec, I am the Careers Coordinator for the college, and we also have there the contact details for Sophie, who's our Progress Leader. You will also be able to get in touch with your Progress Tutor, and we haven't put the details of them on here because they may change into the second year, but if you contact one of us, we will happily put you in touch with the correct Progress Tutor. We will be around over the summer if you need support outside of term time, but certainly back into term as well, we will be available to support through this process. So any questions, do get in touch. Thanks.